Welcome to this session of The Disciplined Lifestyle. I'm Dr. Ed, your host, and with me tonight is going to be the one and only Annelies Boot, also known as Annie. And it's all about the disciplined lifestyle. And she is the author of the section called Social Discipline. Annie, welcome. Welcome to tonight. What is social discipline?
Thank you. Doc, and I think social discipline is everything that we touch in our daily lives. It touches ourselves, the relationship we have with ourselves. It touches relationships that we have with our family members, with our peers, with our work relationship. It touches our health. It touches our environment. Absolutely everything that we've written the book about is involved in social discipline. So that, to me, is really the crux. If the social discipline is right, the rest of the things will fall in place. And that is the difficult one.
Well, obviously, looking at your areas of expertise, you're very strategic. You're a public speaker. You are excellent at getting events going, helping people with events. But social media is sort of your place where you communicate to people, also helping other people how to set up social media, communication channels, etc. You really, really are what I call an expert in the area of social media. So it's really exciting. Great to have you here as I would call you an educational specialist because, man, you love to train people, teach people. And I'm going to go and tell the readers in this book on page 182, we start with a section from Annelies Boot. And by the way, you say that must be from Dutch origin. Am I correct in saying
that? 100% correct. Proudly Dutch.
Which means that you and I somehow interconnected because Van Tonder is also from the Netherlands. So, we are in the roots. We talk in the same language somehow. Okay.
Well, they say 6 degrees of separation. So whether it's family, whether it's friends, colleagues, or even a nation, 6 degrees of separation.
That's it. And the next person is there, and somebody has met somebody, they met somebody, and you've met them. That's the 6 degrees, eh? Well, let's look at your preface. Your very first sentence has got my attention. Discipline provides direction, boundaries, guidelines, and a safety net. So those 4 things: direction, boundaries, guidelines, and a safety net. Let's talk about that. If you say it provides direction, in your mind, through the ambit of social discipline, how does it actually give us direction? Talk to me.
Well, if you are disciplined and you know where it is that you want to go, what your goals and your aims are, then you have direction, because then you know exactly where it is. Do I want to go forward? Do I want to stagnate? Or do I want to move backwards? And that's the direction part in social discipline.
And then if you look at the boundary part, what does that mean?
In my social lifestyle, I have to decide what is it that I personally will allow. Where will I stop? Where do I draw the line? What's my boundary? What will I allow another person to do to me, with me, for me? Where's that boundary? Up to where do we go? Even with my colleagues, with my family, with my employers, with the environment, with churches, with whatever it is, whatever sphere you work in, there's a boundary. How far am I willing to go? And if you know that, socially you sort it.
So really what you're saying is that the strongest word in the English command, the word no, is the one that will come up often if boundaries are used correctly.
I always say no is a full sentence. I don't have to explain anything.
There you have it from Annelies Boot. No is a sentence. Yeah, brilliant. And then we talk about guidelines, social guidelines.
If I am aware of socially where I want to go, it will guide me. It will help me. If I reach a boundary, it will be able to alert me to say, this is a boundary that's going to be crossed. Am I willing to cross it? Or am I willing to take up that step and say, no? Am I willing to negotiate? Am I willing to move a boundary? Am I willing to work on a relationship? Or is this a relationship which I think should be ended, or should it be worked on? Should it be invested in? So that's going to give me the guidelines as to which direction I want to go and which boundaries I want to, and how far I want to move and adjust my boundaries.
You know what comes to my mind is the athlete on the running track. We each run in a lane, and somehow when I have the guidelines, I sort of see the lane, the boundary of the lane, and that's where you run in it, and that's your guide. So, it, when it comes to social, obviously we're going to talk about when we get it wrong a little bit later. So wonderful that we can say stay in your lane in terms of your guidelines. But I love this description. It's a safety net. What does that describe?
If I know who I am, what I'm willing to tolerate, what I'm willing to give, what relationships I value, what in relationships don't I value, what my aims are, that will make me feel secure. It will give me confidence to move ahead, or it will alert me to say, stay put. This is not a safe space. Wait until it is safe to move again. I always use the analogy to say, when you move, and you move into an unfamiliar territory, you always wait for the light. If there's no light, stop. Wait until it's light again. Wait until your safety net kicks in. It's not safe to move. If the light shines and I have direction and clarity and so on, then I move forward. But just to move forward in the darkness and hope that you hit something, you might just hit the wrong thing and not the target. And that's what we want to avoid with social discipline.
Sure. You make me think of the statement that says that darkness is the absence of light.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Well, your command of English is so great that I'm going to ask you to read your own quote on page 183 in the middle from yourself. It starts with the word character. This is powerful. So for those listening in, please listen up because I'd like to unpack this a little bit. Annalise, give us your statement.
I truly believe that character drives you to get out of bed. Commitment moves you into action, and discipline enables you to follow through.
Well, there we have three critical steps from Annalise. And I think just to unpack that a little bit. So you said your character drives you to get out of bed. I found that fascinating because I would have thought that you're going to say discipline is what drives you to get out of bed, but yet you said it's character. Talk to me about that. How many people battle to literally get out of bed?
But it is who you are. It is that decision that you make every single morning as to, am I going today get out of bed and represent who I truly am? Am I somebody that's going to just stay in bed and quit and take a day off? Or am I going to be true to character and get out of bed and start my day? Do we feel like it every day? No, let's be honest. But character says it's the right thing to do. And then you do it. You get out of bed.
Well, no,
and then you'll come.
I just want to come back to the bed thing.
Yeah.
Michelle and I have a bit of a thing in terms of the first thing we do in the morning is as we get out of bed is to make our bed. Somehow, that's not discipline. I think there I'm going to agree with you. That's more a character trait in terms of our day is not organized if our bed is not made. So you've just convinced me that the getting out of bed part is actually not discipline. It's the character part. So thank you for that input. Now take me through the next one, the commitment that moves you into action.
I think if you got out of bed and you've shown character already, now I'm committed because I'm up, right? So now I have another choice. I'm now at a fork in the road. Am I committed now to take my route and go and sit in front of the television set or spend a day with family, or am I going to take the route to work? Is that where my commitment is going to go to? And it should be, if it's a work day, it should be that I'm committed to do whatever it is that I have set out for that day to do. If I have made an arrangement to go and spend a day with family, or I've committed for an event or a public engagement, then that is what I need to do. I need to commit to it because I've given my word. It's part of my character. And if I don't commit to that, my character falls flat, How many times do people say, yo, we got to know this person, but in the end, it was such a disappointment, or oh, what a person of character. If they give you your word, you know it's going to happen, and so on. And that's what we all want to strive for. I don't want people to tell me, oh, you're such a disciplined person. I want people to tell me, oh, what a strong character you have. That to me is the ultimate compliment that people can give to me, because it means I've risen above everything that I've set out for myself to achieve through discipline.
And you would agree with me that since we've had the COVID pandemic in 2020, so many people were forced to now basically work from home. So this issue about the choice to get up out of bed and to go and do something that will take action really has become a reality. And a lot of people have fallen into depression and has battled with this new lifestyle of having to work from home in the absence of going to work. Isn't that true?
That's very true. And I think one of the reasons is that when you are at work, at a place of work where you have to go in, there's routine. And I think it's the routine that helps you plan your day. If you now stay at home, you're in charge of your own routine. It's a new routine. I can decide to get up and get a cup of coffee, or maybe take the dog for a walk, instead of actually attending to my emails. So there, people have been given freedom of choice, and not everybody is disciplined to stick to the routine. The other thing that I think is very important is that people miss the social aspect, the social interaction that an office environment or a work environment brought, because at home you are now isolated from that. And I think it is important to touch base, even though through Zoom and Skype and all the media that we had available during the COVID time where we could touch base, it's not that interaction. I love talking to people and reading their body language. I love hearing their voices. So many times with social media on calls, we switch off our cameras. You don't even know if the person is there. And I think that is where the problem has come in, is that we have the depression, the people that are anxious and so on, because they miss that human contact. So
I was going to say,
although a lot of relief was brought.
In terms of contact, there's nothing that beats a hug. Think about it. You come to and there's nothing meant but this hug that just says, I missed you, I embrace you, and just that connection. It's just the next level. I mean, you cannot do that over Skype or over Zoom. There's just no way of connection in that way.
You know, it's like making a person. It's like making a cup of coffee in the kitchen, and 2 or 3 colleagues are standing there, and that chatter that just evolves around that. You can't have a conversation with yourself in the kitchen, in your own kitchen. That would just look and sound funny. But if you're at an office, that conversation, that interaction, people crave that. Opening the fridge and say, do you take milk? And taking the milk out for everybody. That's what we as humans crave. And we miss that now during this time. If you seal a deal with somebody, what do? You shake hands on it. What do you do over a Zoom call? You give a thumbs up with an emoticon or something like that. But is it really signed, or is it just gestured? So yes.
That's very interesting, because I'm just thinking of you standing in that canteen and literally making your coffee, and that's where the story comes in, because every person has their own story. And you write here in your book, and you speak about the battles we go through, and battles leave scars. Talk to me about that. I mean, I found that fascinating, that there's an ambit that we all might go through, that sometimes life is a battle and it leaves scars, and we all have a story. Talk to us.
I think one thing that we don't always realize, and which I realized at some stage when I did counseling and grief counseling and so on for people, is I realized that there are certain milestones we all go through. We just don't go through them at exactly the same time. We all fall in love. We all lose a loved one. We all stand at a grave. We all have problems with finances. We all have to look for employment. We all have a problem with a boss. Those things are normal in our lives. We just don't all experience them at the same time. So if I have a problem with something and I go through that battle and it leaves a scar, it becomes, number one, my story that I can share because it defines who I am and my character. And number two, it becomes a go-to and maybe a way in which I can assist and help and guide someone else through my experience by not prescribing how they should deal with it, but to give them sort of hope and say, you know what, I survived it, so it's possible for you. Or this is the steps I took. Maybe somebody can find guidance or counseling from that and get some insight as to how they could move forward and so on. So I do believe that even though it's not always a pleasant thing to go through, the battle scars are what defines you. And that is where you find your purpose in your community, is because if your scars become your story, your positive story, it can also become your negative story, and it can really make you anxious and become your trigger. So you must really manage it. But if it can become your positive story, I mean, you can change the world. You can really have a huge impact in the world. And that's my message to people, is that don't let your battle scar define you and break you down. Let it become your song of victory.
So I'm thinking through the social ambit. So either the person in front of you is a victim or they're an overcomer. And I think we are most likely to rather listen to the overcomer, because somehow that gives us the hope of conquering that from ourselves one day. Because here's a person standing in front of us that had a problem, had a challenge, had the battle, had the scars, but still has overcome that problem. And therefore you and I can go speak about it, because it's through other people's stories and life hassles that they overcame that you and I actually learn and sort of try and prevent for that to happen on our side. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. Interesting. I always call it the double V. Through your battle scars, you are either a victim or a victor. And I firmly believe that people don't want to listen to a sad story. They don't want to listen to somebody that's just going to mope and talk about triggers and so on and so on. So, for instance, I had a challenge that I had to overcome that really could define me and it could break me. I decided I was going to deal with it head on. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. It took me a long time. It took me a lot of introspection. I had to spend a lot of energy on overcoming that. I believe I did. When people asked me about it and I told my story, many people said to me, please go out and go and tell people about this. Go onto stages and tell your story. And I thought about it. And I said, in the end, I decided not to. And the reason I decided not to, because I didn't want that one bad thing, that one terrible thing that happened to me, I didn't want that to define the person that I am. I don't want to walk onto a stage and people go, oh, there is the lady that, or there is this. That's not who I am. I'm so much more. And therefore I decided, take from your life what has happened that was not good and how you overcame it, and make that your focus instead of the details of the battle, if that makes sense to you.
I love it. I'm going to give you a double V. Victim or victor? You want to choose.
Victor.
You want to choose the one that really takes you places. Well, as we now start getting into, when you got into some of the meat you're writing about in section 1, you spoke about relationships and negative impact factors on relationships. Let's first contextualize that into social. Then I want you to take me through the time waster area that I saw on page 185. And I thought that was actually significant in terms of understanding it. So first, equate it to social discipline, relationships, and negative factors. And then talk to me about the time waster side.
I think that many times in our relationships, we allow too much. We need to teach people how to treat us by what we allow and what we are willing to accept. And that is difficult sometimes because it could be your own children. And as a parent, you want to care for your children and you want to give and you want to give. But what parents don't realize is that as long as you are willing to give, children are willing to take. And parents should remember that there's a balance. And children should be taught from a very young age that there is a balance. You cannot just always receive. You have to give something back in order for the balance to be there. Not just playing with your toys in the playpen, but also that will teach you, that will train you, it will prepare you for your relationships at school. It will prepare you for your relationships in life, for employment one day. So it is crucial that your village where you live teach you and help you what the normal social values should be. And they do change with society and with as society progresses and time progresses and so on. It does change. I do agree. But certain core values that are in families, and that's why you are born into a family, so that they teach you that that is important, that should be in place. And then we have the time wasters, and the time wasters are things that we bring upon ourselves or that we allow our lives to be encroached on. So one of the biggest time wasters is social media. Okay. Spending too much time on social media. If you, and I don't think there's one person that can say that they weren't shocked or amazed, let's use that word, amazed, at when they started scrolling through social media, they realized in the end, oh my goodness, I'm late for an appointment. I've spent an hour on social media and I haven't done a single thing. I haven't read anything of value. Nothing has contributed. I haven't contributed, and I have wasted an hour or more even. So social media can be a useful tool, but it is just that. It should not become your entertainment. If it does, you will fall into that high, the feel-good hormone, the dopamine, and you will fall into that of, I need the next high, I need the next high, and you will keep on going to social media. You'll wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing you'll do is you'll reach for your phone and you'll scroll through social media. You'll fall asleep eventually and wake up tired. And so you will create that pattern. And that is a huge time waster.
I just want to say, I love your title, Social Discipline. You talked about balance earlier on. Of in itself, social discipline is an antithesis, yet the very thing that gives you the joy with the dopamine release, which is social media, is the very area that needs to be disciplined, because it actually can keep you bogged down senselessly for 2 hours. I spoke to my son the other day. He said to me, Dad, easily, I can just sit and just for 2 hours go scroll, scroll, scroll. At first I thought to him, dude, are you serious? And then it didn't take me long. One day I sat and I looked at my watch and I went, oh my gosh, I have just fallen into that trap myself. And I reminded myself that, listen, there has to be balance in life. And then I looked up and I realized I'm not the only person around here. There's somebody else that needs a cup of coffee. And, we have to sometimes jolt ourselves out, because so easily we can just come into this vortex and just being, can I say, engaged, or just being sucked into this vortex of, and you need discipline to break free.
Absolutely. I think the art of conversation is busy dying, because people no longer sit and talk face to face. Look at when you walk into a restaurant. Please do that exercise for yourself and sit in a restaurant and actually look around at the tables where you are, or that's around you, and see how many people are on their cell phones. Actually, you should have a look and see how many people are not on their cell phones, because the majority will be on their phones. And there's various ways of dealing with this, like having a little a basket in the middle and everybody has to put their phone in there. To me, it's a matter of, it is simply putting my phone away. I don't have to have a little basket that reminds me that I'm now being socially awkward because I'm on my phone, more than actually having a conversation. It's self-discipline. It's that social discipline that I need. It's rude to sit in company on your phone, for instance. I think the other thing which parents teach their children at a very young age is that in my era, or just a little bit after my era, era, parents used to put children in front of a television set, and that became the babysitter. Nowadays, it's no longer the television set; it's now the cell phone or the iPad or the tablet. So almost every child from a very young age have a device, and so children become so addicted to that high that they get the instant gratification that as soon as that device is removed from them, because you can't take it with you into the bathroom or you can't take it to school or whatever, then children don't know how to engage in a conversation, a relationship, and so on. And those are skills that are busy dying that we desperately, desperately need, because there are just some things that AI will not be able to fulfill. It won't be able to step in and fulfill that. And we need the human contact. And that only comes through the relationship that we build with people, man to man, in face to face.
What makes me smile is that, you and I help people through counseling from time to time. And one of the big key components that comes up all the time is the lack of positive communication. But since we've got this new introduction of social media that is so overwhelming, it really has deteriorated. I think you want to agree with me that the problem is bigger now than what it was before.
Way bigger, way bigger. And I don't think people know how to cope with it. I read a statistic the other day. No, I didn't read it. I actually watched a video the other day of a gentleman who said that people's worlds today exist out of 30-second realities.
Wow.
They see a glimpse of the world on a TikTok video or a reel for 30 seconds, and they think that is reality. Yet they don't see the hour before and the hour after that 30 seconds and what actually happened before the actual moment of the reel and then what happened afterwards. So they see a glimpse and they think that is reality. And we are having a distorted world where it leads to more conflict. And unfortunately, conflict is good. It's how you address it. But conflict is no longer addressed through the correct channels because we don't know how to speak to each other anymore. And so if you look at it, everything is collapsing. It's like a snowball. And I am afraid that we are really heading for major disasters with regards to human interaction and so on. I mean, AI, a robot, will become your best friend. That puppy that licks your face in the morning will no longer be there. It will be a robot that will wag its tail and stand and bark in front of your bed, so things will be replaced. I'm sad to say.
You make me crack up just thinking that I won't have a puppy licking my face anymore. I have a robot saying to me, good morning, Oh my gosh.
Just, I'm hungry. Take me out, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I must say, if I just think of how times have changed, society has changed, I think back, and often I say to my son, who didn't have the privilege of making the code where he went to the defense force like I went to the defense force. And I actually realized, although it was a time that I never want over in my life again, it was a forced situation of learning interaction skills, communication skills, coping skills, because you had to get along with other people. Because the scenario was that your life depended on your cooperation and coordination with the person right next to you in your trench. But our young people today don't have the experience that we had, and everything they're exposed to is on social media. And sometimes it's a difference of not being in reality, but sort of they go into a world of their own reality that's not really reality. Would you agree?
Absolutely. If you just look at all the influences that are out there that portray this is the world that you need, this is the life that you need to lead. If you don't have so much money, or you don't drive this kind of a car, or you don't have this lifestyle, then you are not it. Then you are not, you're not worth anything, or you're not valuable. And isn't that what we have fought for so long, is to teach people that You are valuable. You have value. Whether you are the newspaper seller at the corner of the street or whether you are the CEO of a company, you are valuable because you have a purpose. Now, what are we teaching people? If you don't have this, and this, you have no purpose. And if you just look at the high rate of suicide that we have amongst teenagers now, they don't have coping skills anymore. They don't know how to handle conflict. They don't know how to interact. So to them, the grasping just taking myself out, I'm not worth anything. Look at people being bullied, through what do? They commit suicide, and it is absolutely so sad. So we as adults, as people that have the battle scars, that have been through it, we are the knowledgeable people now. We are the ones that need to step up and go out and save the day. We need to go and speak to young people and engage with them. Yes, I know you're going to have a terrible time trying to get the cell phones away from them, but it's not a bad thing. The cell phone is not a bad thing, but we need to teach them how to use it through discipline.
Correct.
That's the key. If you're not disciplined in something, you will misuse everything.
And the thing is that social connection through the discipline becomes part of a need in society that plays a role. For instance, I think, I'm going to say this very slowly, and for those that judge me if you want to, but I believe that we are raising the largest group of narcissists that this world has ever seen in terms of allowing children to become the center of the universe. Everything is about them. They get what they want what they get, and then they sit on it. And there's no negotiation. They don't have the skill to accommodate other people. It's all about me, I, and myself, which I call the unholy trinity. So I think parents need to be aware that if they don't, number one, help their children to live a life with connection and interaction with other children, other people, other circumstances, we actually helping them become what we don't want them to be. Yet when they do result in becoming narcissists, we go, how did that happen? But we don't realize it passes us by without us grasping what we're doing. So talk to me. I know that you help a lot of people that have turned narcissists in terms of you having identified that trait in schools, being so involved with children and their development. Talk to me about that.
I agree 100% with you. And that is that the trend of, I can call it a trend, or narcissistic traits are really on the increase. It is all about me. It's all about my sense of entitlement. Our children don't have the ability to empathize with anybody else. They don't have empathy. They don't have sympathy. Why don't they have that? Because they believe that they are always right. What they do is always the cutest. It's always the best. My mom or dad will step in for me. They will fight my battles for me. And I think that's where parents, unfortunately, don't hit the correct target. I think we should teach our children the skills, how to communicate. No, unfortunately, you didn't win this game. You didn't win this match. So you know what? That doesn't make you a bad person. It was now the turn of the other team to also win, because they can't forever be losers. You can't forever be a winner. In life, you're not always going to be the winner. You're not always going to be the CEO of a company. That's why we have so many youngsters that walk into companies and they demand the salary and the perks of a CEO, yet they haven't worked for a single day, And I mean, we saw it. We've experienced it. So I think parents need to take a reality check. They need to take a step back and say the following: where do I want to see my 2-year-old or my 3-year-old child in 20 years' time when they have to start employment? So they need to take a long, hard look 20 years ahead, and they need to raise the child that's going to live 20 years from now, the young adult that's going to live 20 years from now. And that's the goal. That's the aim. That is the smart goals that they need to put into place in order to help their child manage through that. Because we have children that walk into classrooms and dictate to adults, to teachers, what they want and how things are going to happen, instead of actually following a disciplined system that is within the school. Just for instance, look in restaurants where you have children running around, running amok, not even knowing how to sit at a table and just having a decent meal with a family, having a conversation. Those are things that are, it's alarming to me. I always love people sitting in public and just watching the world go by and so on. And I promise you, nowadays, I walk out of these restaurants and I just shake my head and I think, you are really raising a lot of trouble for yourself. If I can just relate an interesting story.
Yep.
I sat at a rugby match a while ago, and in front of me was a young dad with a very young son about 4 or 5 years old. So as they were playing the match, the dad was shouting all kinds of obscenities to the ref and, to the players and so on. And the little one followed suit. He was also throwing the symbols and the signs and the words. And everybody there thought it was cute and they laughed and it was, it was so funny. And to me, it wasn't funny because I just see the child 20 years from now, and so on. So anyway, so the dad looked around and he said to his son, the lady behind us doesn't think that you're funny, And I thought, he immediately tried to embarrass me, but he was the one that should have been embarrassed, but be that as it may. So I leaned in and I said, you know what, it doesn't really make a difference whether I think it's funny or not. I said, now you think him showing signs and shouting obscenities are cute and funny, and you put it on video and it's, you send it all over to show to anybody. But that will become your child's story. And when your child is 16 and he shows you those same symbols or he shouts the same profanities at you, are you then going to think it's still funny? That's what's most important. And what are you setting your child up to be? A victor or a victim or a failure, and that is so important because as parents, we need to step up and not think that everything that our children do is cute and okay. And if they've done something wrong, let them face the consequences, but equip them, teach them how to accept consequences, to speak up, to tell the truth and so on, and to accept responsibility. If there's punishment, take the punishment, whatever it is. Just have a communication structure with your child. It's extremely important.
From my side, I sat listening here, and that's why I just couldn't get a word out, because I could see the reality in front of me of how the father allowing that child to follow his role model, not realizing that 10 or 20 years down the line, that's exactly how he's going to treat other people. And when you ask the question, ask the father, will you then think that is cute? Brought reality to the equation. So, Annalise, I am just overwhelmed in terms of your command of social discipline and how it interacts. So I'm going to invite you back to continue on this discussion, because this was just the tip of the iceberg. And with your permission, I'd like to actually continue and get a grip of social discipline deeper. We haven't even touched the first 10% of what you wrote about. But I just think that today has been so valuable to listeners of the practical application of how social discipline plays a role in our lives. So with your agreement, if we could do that, do you mind coming back a few more times so we can just thrash this through? Is that okay with you?
Just ring my bell. And then I just want to say to listeners, please, in your diaries, socially and disciplined, please write down 19, 20, and 21 September for a something that I would like to share with you the next time that I come back. That is going to be for people in Gauteng, an event that will be hosted, and I really think it is something that will add value, where we are also then going to be talking about the social aspect of being a woman, and this is for women specifically. So I do invite your guests, but I will speak more about that when I do come back.
Okay, so I tell you what, it's going to be next week, same time, same place, and we can continue with this topic. And then, Annalise, you can give them details about the event in September, which I believe that every woman, as you've invited them, should be there in terms of social discipline and interaction. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for being one of the authors that has made this book possible. And I can tell you, you and I have a desire to really make a change. So, your parting words, social discipline. What would you like people to take away just from your heart of what we have shared tonight? Go for it.
My go-to is always, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. So allow life to challenge you and change appropriately. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Annalise. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Annalise Boert, the author of Social Discipline, part of the book, The Disciplined Lifestyle, subtitle, Self-Control Through Behavior Modification. And as you can see, there's so much more to be talked about, and we shall see you next week, same time, same place, as we speak again, and we take this further. Thank you, Annalise, and listeners. It was great to interact with you again.